What if I told you that the ancient prophets, whose words echo through millennia, once cast their gaze upon lands far beyond their known world, hinting at nations yet to rise, at struggles and triumphs that would shape the very end of days? What if the destiny of a nation often lost in the modern headlines, a place known today as Venezuela, was not only foreseen but intricately woven into the very fabric of biblical prophecy, contrary to what most assume? This is not merely a tale of history or politics, but a profound unveiling of spiritual truths hidden in plain sight, a mystery that, once revealed, will forever change how you view the scriptures and the unfolding saga of humanity. The whispers of ancient gold, carried on the winds of forgotten histories, have always held a profound allure, not merely for their material value, but for their spiritual and prophetic significance. From the earliest accounts of human civilization, gold has been intertwined with power, divinity, and destiny, a treasure sought by kings and revered by priests. But what if the legendary lands of biblical gold, sources of unimaginable wealth that shaped ancient empires, held a far more specific and enduring connection to a place we know today as Venezuela? This is not a fanciful speculation, but an exploration into scriptural depths and historical echoes that suggests such a link is more than mere coincidence. Consider the enigmatic land of Ophir, mentioned in the Old Testament as a source of the finest gold, a place from which King Solomon received vast quantities of this precious metal every 3 years. 1 Kings 9, 28, 10-11, 2 Chronicles 8, 10-8, 9-10. The Bible describes the ships of Tarshish, manned by Hiram's sailors, journeying to Ophir, returning laden not only with gold but also with precious stones and algum wood. The sheer scale and regularity of these expeditions suggest a land of immense, accessible wealth, far beyond the immediate Middle East. For centuries, scholars and explorers have debated Ophir's true location, proposing sites across Africa, India, and even the Far East. Yet, none of these locations perfectly align with all the biblical descriptions, particularly the 3-year journey, the types of cargo, and the quality of the gold. Enter the New World, a vast continent unveiled to European eyes millennia after Solomon's reign, yet a land whose very soil teemed with the gold that fueled ancient myths. When Christopher Columbus first set foot on the northern coast of South America, near what is now Venezuela, he was struck by the sight of indigenous peoples adorned with gold. His journals and letters speak of a land of grace, where the natives wore large pieces of gold around their necks and wrists, a metal they acquired from inland rivers. He wrote to Ferdinand and Isabella, "I believe that in that land are great mines of gold, and that is no small marvel, for there are islands here where there are mines of copper, and others where there are gold, and in the mainland all is gold, as it is said of the lands of Ophir." This initial encounter, rich with golden promise, sparked the fervent quest for El Dorado, a mythical city of gold that consumed European explorers for centuries, drawing them ever deeper into the heart of the South American continent, much of it within the geographical confines of modern-day Venezuela. The historical accounts of the Spanish conquest describe a land overflowing with gold. The indigenous peoples, particularly those in the region of Venezuela, possessed a sophisticated understanding of gold extraction from alluvial deposits and hard rock mines. The very name Venezuela is said by some to derive from the Italian Veneziola, or Little Venice, named by Amerigo Vespucci. But the lure that drew the conquistadors was pure gold, vast treasures hidden within rivers, mountains, and the very soil of the land. Within decades, enormous quantities of gold were extracted and shipped back to Spain, profoundly altering the European economy and political landscape. This flow of gold from South America, in its initial intensity, mirrored the biblical accounts of Ophir's bounty, suggesting a deeper resonance than mere chance. But the connection runs deeper than just the presence of gold, reaching into prophecy, ancient memory, and the whispers of forgotten lands. Ancient texts, though not directly naming Venezuela, speak of lands at the ends of the earth or beyond the Great Sea where riches lay. The Book of Enoch, revered by the early church, speaks in allegorical terms of far-off lands and hidden treasures, shrouded in mystery. While not explicitly mentioning gold, Enoch's journeys across the earth describe mighty rivers and vast lands, unknown to the ancient Near East. These hints suggest a geography that could encompass a continent like South America, far beyond the imagination of ancient scribes. The very concept of the ends of the earth, often used in scripture, could be interpreted as encompassing these remote, gold-rich lands. Consider further the mention of Parvaim gold in 2 Chronicles 3-6, sometimes linked to Ophir or simply another source of fine gold. The geographical location of Parvaim remains debated, but its very obscurity in biblical geography suggests a distant origin. The consistency of ancient reports of gold coming from the south or beyond the known seas creates a narrative thread that biblical scholars like Josephus in his Antiquities of the Jews, Book 8, Chapter 6, Section 4, also wrestled with, seeking to place Ophir in various far-flung locations. Josephus, for example, suggests Ophir was in India, but his reasoning often relied on contemporary geographical understandings, not necessarily exhaustive biblical ones. Yet, a powerful argument can be made by juxtaposing the biblical description of Ophir's gold with the geological reality of Venezuela. The Guiana Shield, a vast geological formation that underlies much of Venezuela, is one of the oldest and most mineral-rich regions on Earth, containing immense deposits of gold, diamonds, and other precious minerals. This ancient geological foundation ensures that gold has been accessible in this region for millennia, long before colonial discovery. The sheer abundance of gold, easily found in rivers and shallow deposits, would have made it a prime target for ancient maritime expeditions, provided they possessed the navigational capabilities. So, while the Bible does not explicitly name Venezuela, the cumulative evidence, the consistent biblical narratives of gold from a distant, unidentified land, the historical accounts of staggering gold wealth discovered in Venezuela, and the very geological makeup of the region paints a compelling picture. Could it be that the ancient voyages to Ophir were, in fact, daring expeditions across vast oceans, reaching shores that would later be known as the Venezuelan coast? The very concept challenges our traditional understanding of ancient navigation and geopolitics, yet it forces us to reconsider the vastness of biblical knowledge and the true extent of ancient global connections. The idea that Venezuela, a nation struggling with modern challenges, carries within its very soil and history a biblical resonance of Ophir's gold, is a profound thought. It elevates its story beyond mere contemporary headlines, imbuing it with an ancient, almost predestined significance. This rich historical and geological tapestry, interwoven with biblical prophecy, suggests that the gold of Venezuela is more than just a resource. It might be a key to understanding a deeper, divinely orchestrated narrative that spans millennia and points towards the unfolding of ultimate prophecies. It hints that the wealth of nations, then as now, plays a crucial role in the divine plan, often revealing itself in unexpected corners of the globe. Just as ancient texts speak of distant lands yielding precious gold, they also often highlight the profound spiritual and physical significance of great rivers. Throughout scripture and ancient narratives, rivers are more than mere geographical features. They are symbols of life, blessing, judgment, and the very flow of divine providence. From the 4 rivers of Eden that watered the primordial garden to the river of life flowing from the throne of God in Revelation, these waterways represent sustenance, boundaries, and the arteries through which divine will is often manifested. If the land of Venezuela echoes the golden wealth of Ophir, then its defining natural wonder, the majestic Orinoco River, might carry an equally profound, though often overlooked, prophetic resonance, a river of God for the end times. The Orinoco, one of the world's largest rivers by discharge volume, carves a vast arc across South America, primarily within Venezuela, before emptying into the Atlantic Ocean. Its immense power, its intricate network of tributaries, and its vital role in the ecosystem and human habitation of the region are undeniable. For millennia, indigenous peoples have revered the Orinoco as the lifeblood of their lands, a source of sustenance and spiritual power. Its sheer scale, over 2,140 kilometers long, with a basin covering an area larger than France, commands awe and respect, defining the very landscape and identity of a nation. In the biblical context, rivers often represent God's provision and the flow of His Spirit. Psalm 46:4 declares, "There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells." This metaphorical river speaks of divine blessing and spiritual refreshment. Similarly, Ezekiel's vision of the temple river, Ezekiel 47:1-12, describes waters flowing from the temple, bringing life and healing wherever they go, turning barren lands into fertile ground and making the Dead Sea teem with fish. This river, increasing in depth and power, is a powerful symbol of spiritual renewal and the life-giving presence of God transforming the natural world. Now, consider the profound imagery of Revelation 22:1-2. "Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle of the great street of the city. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations." This ultimate river, flowing from the very source of divine authority, signifies eternal life, health, and restoration for all humanity. While this is a vision of the New Jerusalem, it sets a powerful precedent for understanding the spiritual significance of rivers as conduits of divine purpose. How then might the Orinoco, a tangible, physical river, connect to these profound biblical themes? It is through its historical and present-day role as a source of life, a boundary marker, and a conduit for trade and influence, particularly in a region that holds prophetic significance. The Orinoco's vast delta and extensive navigable length have always made it a crucial artery, connecting the interior of the continent to the global maritime routes. This strategic importance, both economically and militarily, resonates with the biblical emphasis on waterways as critical for the movement of goods, peoples, and ideas. An ancient source that further illuminates the spiritual significance of natural phenomena, though not directly mentioning the Orinoco, is the Book of Jubilees. This apocryphal work, dating from the 2nd century BCE and also part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Bible, provides a detailed account of the division of the earth among Noah's sons after the flood. It describes specific geographical boundaries and great waters, emphasizing that these divisions were divinely ordained. Jubilee's meticulous mapping of the world, albeit from an ancient perspective, underscores the idea that even physical geography holds a place in God's overarching plan. While Jubilees doesn't name the Orinoco, its vision of divinely designated territories and powerful rivers shaping continents provides a theological framework for considering how a river of the Orinoco's magnitude might not be merely accidental, but part of a grander design for the ends of the earth. Furthermore, the Orinoco River Basin is not just rich in water, but also in diverse ecosystems and, notably, vast quantities of petroleum, often referred to as black gold. This confluence of a life-giving river and immense natural resources creates a powerful paradox. The very river that sustains life also traverses lands, holding the world's largest proven oil reserves. This brings to mind the duality often seen in prophetic texts: blessings and burdens, life, and the temptations of worldly wealth. The struggle for control over resources, often facilitated or hindered by such powerful natural features, is a recurring theme in global geopolitics, echoing the movements of empires described in ancient prophecies. But Revelation 12 may hint at an even more profound, albeit symbolic, connection. This chapter describes a cosmic conflict involving a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars, who gives birth to a male child. A great red dragon attempts to devour the child. When the child is caught up to God, the dragon pursues the woman, but the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had poured out of his mouth to overwhelm her. Revelation 12:16. While the river here is symbolic of a flood of persecution or opposition, the imagery of the earth helping by swallowing the river suggests a miraculous intervention, a geographical or natural force absorbing a devastating threat. Could this imagery, in a profound spiritual and symbolic sense, resonate with the Orinoco? This mighty river, flowing through a land with a complex destiny, might metaphorically represent a powerful force within the earth capable of absorbing or diverting currents of spiritual or geopolitical conflict. This is not to say the Orinoco is literally the river of Revelation 12, but rather to consider how its immense geographical presence in a region of significant prophetic interest could be seen as an earthly counterpoint to forces of destruction. It could perhaps represent a source of strength or a strategic barrier in times of conflict, a life-giving force that spiritually or even physically swallows the floods of opposition. The Orinoco's role as a natural barrier and a strategic artery cannot be overstated. It has, throughout history, been a pathway for exploration and trade, but also a formidable obstacle to invaders, shaping the very course of conflicts. In a prophetic context, where nations rise and fall and geopolitical chess pieces are moved, the presence of such a dominant natural feature in a region of vast resources and emerging spiritual shifts takes on a magnified significance. It is a reminder that God uses both the grand movements of history and the seemingly immutable features of the earth to fulfill his purposes. Thus, the Orinoco, more than a river, becomes a powerful symbol within the narrative of Venezuela's destiny. It is a conduit of life, a repository of immense natural wealth, and potentially a player in the spiritual battles that define the end times, much like the great rivers of old. Its ancient roar and ceaseless flow carry within them echoes of divine purpose, inviting us to see beyond its surface and into the deeper currents of prophecy that shape nations. In the grand tapestry of biblical prophecy, the rise and fall of nations, the shifting alliances of kingdoms, and the emergence of powerful leaders are often foretold with striking precision. While many prophecies focus on the traditional centers of ancient power in the Near East, there are intriguing hints and broader strokes that speak of the ends of the earth and specific directional alignments. The North, the East, and significantly for our narrative, the South. These princes of the South, or kings of the South, as they appear in various biblical books, suggest a geopolitical importance, beyond the immediate view of the ancient prophets, potentially encompassing modern leaders and movements far removed from the familiar biblical stage. Consider the book of Daniel, particularly chapter 11, which details a long and complex prophecy concerning the king of the north and the king of the south. While traditionally interpreted as referring to the Ptolemaic and Seleucid dynasties that contended for control of the ancient world after Alexander the Great, the exhaustive nature of the prophecy suggests something deeper. Its eventual transition into events preceding the very end times suggests a recurring pattern of conflict and power dynamics across history. The king of the south, in this context, is a powerful regional player, often a rival or adversary to the king of the north. Engaging in battles, forming alliances, and exerting significant influence, this recurring motif establishes a biblical precedent for powerful leadership emerging from southern territories. Now, let us turn our gaze to Venezuela, a nation geographically situated in the south relative to major global powers and historical centers of influence. For centuries, following its colonial past, Venezuela has navigated a complex path towards self-determination, often marked by charismatic leaders and revolutionary movements. In recent decades, particularly with the rise of figures like Hugo Chavez and his successor Nicolás Maduro, Venezuela has positioned itself as a significant leader. At times controversial, Venezuela has stood as a prominent actor within the South American continent and on the global stage, challenging established norms. This emergence of strong, ideologically driven leadership from the South challenges established norms and forms, new alliances, echoing ancient prophetic dynamics. The Bolivarian Revolution, initiated by Chavez, explicitly sought to create a new geopolitical order, fostering regional integration and openly challenging hegemonic influence from the North. This movement, with its socialist ideology and anti-imperialist rhetoric, resonated deeply within the region and beyond, creating a distinct Southern bloc. This conscious formation of a powerful, unified front from the South, often in direct opposition to established Western powers, offers a modern manifestation of the King of the South archetype. It is not merely a political alignment, but a profound ideological and strategic shift, impacting global power balances. An ancient source that lends perspective to the spiritual significance of leadership and power is the writings of the early Church Fathers. Irenaeus, in his seminal work Against Heresies, Book 5, Chapter 26, Section 1, discusses the rise of powerful figures and their role in prophecy, particularly concerning the end times. While primarily focused on the Antichrist, Irenaeus's analysis emphasizes that earthly rulers and their kingdoms are instruments in the unfolding of divine prophecy. He understood that the spirit of rebellion and opposition to God's order could manifest through human leaders and their empires, no matter their geographical origin. This theological framework allows us to see how modern political leaders and movements, even in distant lands, can inadvertently fulfill roles foreshadowed in ancient texts. The alliances forged by Venezuela under its recent leadership further amplify this southern dynamic. The formation of regional blocs like ALBA, Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, and its close ties with other southern nations, as well as with distant powers often considered rivals to the West, signifies a deliberate attempt to shift global power away from traditional centers. These coalitions, rooted in shared ideologies and strategic interests, project a collective strength from the South, capable of influencing international discourse, challenging established orders. This creates a compelling parallel to the description of a powerful king of the South in Daniel's prophecy, which speaks of a ruler who shall attack him, the king of the North, and engage in significant military and political maneuvers, Daniel 11:40. But Revelation 17 may hint at a spiritual dimension to these earthly power shifts. This chapter describes a powerful harlot seated on many waters, representing a great city or empire that reigns over the kings of the earth, Revelation 17:18. This harlot is also seen riding a scarlet beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. The 10 horns are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose, and will give their power and authority to the beast, Revelation 17:12-1-3. While the primary interpretation focuses on a future global power structure, the imagery of kings of the earth, receiving temporary authority and uniting for a common purpose, even if misguided, can be seen as a broader prophetic archetype. Could the rise of powerful leaders from the South, forming new alliances and asserting their authority on the global stage, be a precursor or a partial fulfillment of such a prophetic pattern? While not directly identifying Venezuela, the spirit of collective action among kings or princes from various regions, aligning to challenge or reconfigure global power structures, resonates with the imagery of Revelation 17. The strategic positioning of nations like Venezuela, with vast natural resources like the black gold we discussed earlier, and a strong ideological stance, makes them significant players in any realignment of global power. They become key horns or kings in the broader geopolitical beast, capable of influencing the flow of events and shaping future conflicts. The historical trajectory of Venezuela, from its struggle for independence to its modern-day assertion of sovereignty and influence, positions it uniquely within the prophetic narrative of Southern powers. The consistent emergence of leaders who boldly challenge the status quo, who seek to unite regions, and who are willing to confront established global hierarchies, aligns remarkably with the ancient descriptions of powerful princes of the South. Their actions, whether driven by political ambition or a genuine desire for regional empowerment, contribute to the unfolding drama of nations that the prophet so vividly described. Therefore, the story of Venezuela's leadership, its embrace of a distinct southern identity, and its forging of new alliances, is not merely a tale of modern geopolitics. It is a chapter in a much older narrative, one foretold in the biblical texts, where the movements of kings of the earth, including those from the south, play a crucial role in preparing the stage for the ultimate fulfillment of prophecy. These leaders, with their visions and their struggles, are unwitting participants in a divine drama, revealing that God's plan encompasses all nations and all ages, even those far removed from the sands of ancient Judea. The ebb and flow of global trade, the mighty fleets that ply the world's oceans, and the economic power they represent, have always held a significant place in biblical prophecy. From the wealth of Tyre to the merchant ships of distant lands, economic dominance and maritime prowess are often linked to prophetic destinies, serving as indicators of geopolitical power and influence. Among these ancient maritime powers, Tarshish stands out as a recurring enigmatic reference, often associated with distant voyages, immense wealth, and a certain burden or prophetic judgment. What if the strategic coastal position and vast resource wealth of Venezuela, a nation bordering the Caribbean and the Atlantic, could somehow resonate with the ancient burden of Tarshish, hinting at its role in the final days of global commerce and influence? Tarshish is mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament, consistently portrayed as a distant, powerful maritime center. Its ships, often called ships of Tarshish, were large, seafaring vessels capable of long voyages, bringing back silver, iron, tin, lead, and, as we discussed in Part 1, even gold from Ophir, Ezekiel 27-12, Jeremiah 10-9, 1 Kings 10:22. Jonah famously attempted to flee to Tarshish to escape God's command, Jonah 1-3, highlighting its reputation as a far-off port, seemingly beyond God's immediate reach. The exact location of Tarshish remains a subject of scholarly debate, with suggestions ranging from Spain, Tartessos, to Sardinia, or even a general term for distant trading posts. Regardless of its precise ancient location, the spirit of Tarshish represents a formidable naval and commercial power, a distant but influential player in the global economy of its time. Now, consider Venezuela's geographical and economic realities. With an extensive coastline along the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, Venezuela possesses a strategically vital position for maritime trade. This natural advantage is amplified by its immense natural resources, most notably the world's largest proven oil reserves. The vast quantity of this black gold has, for decades, positioned Venezuela as a key player in the global energy market. Its oil tankers plying the same sea lanes that ancient ships of Tarshish might have once navigated. This connection to global commerce, driven by a valuable resource and facilitated by maritime access, draws a powerful parallel to the ancient prophetic narratives. The burden of Tarshish is specifically mentioned in Isaiah 23, a prophecy primarily concerning the downfall of Tyre, another great maritime trading city. Isaiah 23:1 states, "The oracle concerning Tyre. Wail, O ships of Tarshish, for Tyre is laid waste, without house or harbor." This lament implies a close economic relationship between Tarshish and Tyre, where the destruction of one significantly impacts the other. The burden suggests a heavy responsibility, a significant role in global trade, and also a potential for judgment due to pride or unrighteous dealings. This prophetic burden is not necessarily about the physical destruction of Tarshish itself, but about the impact of broader geopolitical shifts on its economic interests and influence. An ancient source that elaborates on the nature of maritime trade and its spiritual implications is the Book of Revelation. While focusing on the end-time Babylon, Revelation 18 vividly describes the lamentations of the merchants of the earth over its destruction. They weep because no one buys their cargoes anymore, cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron and marble, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, incense, myrrh and frankincense, wine and olive oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots and slaves' human lives. Revelation 18:11-13. This exhaustive list highlights the vast interconnectedness of global trade and the profound economic shockwaves when a major commercial power falls. Could the economic struggles and strategic vulnerabilities of modern-day Venezuela, despite its immense wealth, resonate with this burden of Tarshish? In recent years, Venezuela has faced severe economic challenges, including sanctions, hyperinflation, and a decline in its oil production capacity, leading to a significant reduction in its global trade influence. This period of economic wailing among its merchants and a diminished role in global energy markets can be seen as a modern manifestation of a burden. The nation's immense potential, juxtaposed with its current difficulties, mirrors the prophetic imagery of powerful trading entities facing dramatic reversals, impacting those who relied on their commerce. But Revelation 18 may hint at an even more direct connection concerning the ultimate end-time economic system. The passage speaks of the kings of the earth who committed acts of sexual immorality with Babylon, and the merchants who grew rich from her excessive luxuries, Revelation 18:3. This implies a global economic system characterized by immense wealth, luxury, and potentially illicit dealings, ultimately leading to a swift and catastrophic collapse. The ships of Tarshish, in a modern context, could represent the vast global shipping networks and the nations that heavily rely on the trade of strategic commodities, such as oil, to sustain their economies and influence. Venezuela's unique position as a major oil producer and its complex geopolitical relationships place it firmly within these global economic currents. Its oil wealth has, at various times, fueled economic prosperity and geopolitical leverage, making it a critical cargo supplier for numerous nations. The burden for Venezuela, then, could be interpreted as the weight of its vast resources, making it a prize coveted by external powers, a point of contention in international relations and a target for economic pressure. The nation's destiny becomes inextricably linked to the fate of global energy markets and the broader geopolitical struggles over resources, much like Tarshish was tied to the fate of ancient trade routes. Moreover, the phrase "ships of Tarshish" can also be interpreted as representing advanced naval technology and far-reaching commercial enterprises. In a contemporary sense, this could refer to modern supertankers, cargo ships, and the entire logistical apparatus that moves vast quantities of resources across oceans. Venezuela's role in this global shipping network as a major source and destination for these ships positions it within the prophetic framework of nations whose influence is tied to their maritime and economic power. Therefore, the burden of Tarshish, when viewed through the lens of Venezuela's current reality, takes on a compelling new dimension. It is not merely a historical prophecy about an ancient port, but a principle that applies to nations whose identity and influence are heavily invested in global trade, particularly maritime commerce and strategic resources. Venezuela's vast oil reserves, its strategic coastline, and its current struggles to navigate the complexities of the global economy present a modern fulfillment of a very ancient prophetic archetype. It suggests that even in its present challenges, Venezuela is playing a significant, albeit burdensome, role in the unfolding economic and geopolitical drama that Scripture foretells for the end times, preparing the stage for the final configurations of world power and commerce. Beyond the rise and fall of nations, the shifting sands of political power, and the complex currents of global economics, biblical prophecy ultimately points towards a grand spiritual climax, a final ingathering, a harvest of the nations where hearts are turned towards the divine, and a profound spiritual awakening sweeps across the earth. This is not merely a matter of geopolitics or resources, but of the human soul and its ultimate destiny. What if Venezuela, a nation deeply embedded in the ancient prophecies of gold, strategic rivers, and southern powers, is also destined to play a significant role in this final spiritual awakening, becoming a crucible for the harvest of the nations? The concept of a spiritual harvest is pervasive throughout Scripture. From the parable of the sower, Matthew 13 to 1-23, to Jesus' declaration that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, Matthew 9:37, the imagery of gathering souls into God's kingdom is central to the divine plan. Joel 3:13 proclaims, "Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Go in, tread, for the winepress is full. The vats overflow, for their evil is great." While this particular passage speaks of judgment, it underscores the idea of a decisive moment, a time when the spiritual state of humanity reaches a critical point, necessitating a divine response, whether in judgment or in salvation. The ultimate harvest is one of souls, gathered from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. Revelation 7-9. Venezuela, despite its recent economic and political turmoil, has historically been a land with a deeply spiritual populace, predominantly Christian. In recent decades, there has been a notable surge in evangelical Christianity and charismatic movements across Latin America, including Venezuela. Amidst profound social and political crises, many Venezuelans have turned to faith for solace, hope, and community, leading to a remarkable spiritual vibrancy in many churches. This turning to God in times of great adversity is a hallmark of revival and spiritual awakening, aligning with the biblical pattern of seeking divine intervention when human solutions fail. Could this profound spiritual movement, occurring in a nation with such intriguing prophetic connections, be a part of the prophesied harvest of the nations? The sheer scale of people turning to faith, seeking spiritual answers, and experiencing personal transformation in Venezuela suggests a significant work of the Holy Spirit. This is not merely a localized phenomenon, but part of a broader spiritual dynamism seen across the global South, where Christianity is experiencing its most rapid growth. An ancient source that touches upon the universality of God's plan for all peoples is the Didache, also known as the Teaching of the 12 Apostles. This early Christian treatise, dating from the late 1st or early 2nd century CE, outlines ethical teachings, liturgical practices, and community organization. In its prayers, the Didache emphasizes the gathering of the church from the ends of the earth into thy kingdom, praying with conviction for unity. As this broken bread was scattered over the hills and then was gathered together and became one, so let thy church be gathered together from the ends of the earth into thy kingdom. Didache 9-4. This ancient prayer vividly expresses the early church's conviction that God's plan of salvation encompassed all humanity, from every corner of the globe, truly a harvest of the nations. The spiritual resilience and fervent faith observed in many Venezuelan communities, even amidst unimaginable hardship, demonstrate a profound human capacity to find hope and purpose in divine encounter. This phenomenon, occurring in a nation geographically located at what might have been considered the ends of the earth by ancient biblical writers, provides a tangible example of God's redemptive work spanning all continents and cultures. The growth of indigenous spiritual leaders, the proliferation of Bible studies, and the visible impact of faith on social welfare initiatives within Venezuela are all indicators of a nation undergoing a deep spiritual transformation. But Revelation 14 may hint at an even more direct, albeit symbolic, connection. This chapter describes 3 angelic messages proclaimed to the whole world, warning against false worship and declaring, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the springs of water." Revelation 14-7. Following this, another angel proclaims, "Fallen! Fallen is Babylon the Great," and a third warns against taking the mark of the beast. Immediately after these proclamations, Jesus is depicted with a sharp sickle, and an angel cries out, "Swing your sickle and reap, because the time to reap has come, for the harvest of the earth is ripe." Revelation 14:15. This harvest of the earth is a definitive moment, a culmination of spiritual readiness, both for those who will be gathered into God's kingdom and those who will face judgment. Could the spiritual awakenings occurring in Venezuela and other nations of the global south be a precursor, a vital preparation for this ultimate harvest? The intensity of faith, the willingness to suffer for belief, and the fervent expectation of divine intervention seen in these communities could be precisely the kind of spiritual ripeness that precedes a grand, global ingathering. The suffering and trials faced by the Venezuelan people, rather than extinguishing faith, seem to have purified and deepened it, producing a spiritual fruit that is ripe for God's purposes. The narrative of Venezuela, therefore, culminates not merely in political or economic outcomes, but in its spiritual destiny. From the ancient echoes of Ophir's gold grounding it in prophetic history, through the life-giving symbolism of the Orinoco and the rise of its southern leaders challenging global norms, its story now points to a profound spiritual significance. The fervent faith, the widespread turning to God amidst adversity, and the burgeoning spiritual movements within Venezuela suggest that this nation, far from being an afterthought in biblical prophecy, is poised to be a vibrant participant in the ultimate harvest of the nations. It is a testament to God's universal plan, reaching even to the farthest corners of the earth, demonstrating that His Spirit is at work everywhere, preparing hearts for His glorious return. The story of Venezuela, then, is not just a tale of a nation's struggle, but a compelling chapter in the unfolding spiritual destiny of humanity. As the echoes of ancient prophecies converge with the vivid realities of our present age, we are left with a profound sense of awe at the intricate tapestry woven by divine design. The journey through Venezuela's biblical destiny, from the fabled gold of Ophir possibly resting beneath its soil to the life-giving currents of the Orinoco, reveals a narrative far richer and more deeply connected. From the assertions of its southern leaders to the spiritual awakening blossoming amidst its trials, it is more deeply connected than surface appearances suggest. It is a story of a nation seemingly distant from biblical landscapes, yet indelibly linked to its prophetic currents, reminding us that no place, no people is beyond the gaze of the divine. This journey invites us to perceive the sacred in the seemingly secular, to find the whispers of ancient truths in contemporary headlines, and to recognize that the grand story of salvation is still unfolding, drawing all nations, even those at the ends of the earth, into its magnificent embrace. In every struggle, every triumph, every turn of the page in history, the hand of the Almighty is at work, orchestrating a future that will ultimately culminate in the gathering of all peoples unto Him. The profound realization is that the divine narrative is not confined to antiquity, but lives and breathes within the vibrant, often turbulent story of every nation, including Venezuela, beckoning us to witness the unfolding of eternity. Thank you for listening.